AITAH for telling my cheating wife I was divorcing her the day before our daughter's graduation? This situation has been weighing on me for a while, and I really need some outside perspectives. I've been questioning my decisions a lot lately, and while I know there's no easy way to handle these kinds of things, I'm left wondering if I was truly in the wrong for how I chose to handle everything. Let me give some background first. My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and we have an 18-year-old daughter who recently graduated from high school a few months ago. It's been an emotional time. She's heading off to college soon, and we've been navigating all the usual ups and downs that come with that transition. But this isn't really about my daughter's graduation. It's about what happened in the days leading up to it. 6 years ago, I found out that my wife had been having an affair. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. The affair lasted for a couple of months before I finally discovered the truth. At the time, I was completely blindsided. The betrayal shook me to my core, and my immediate reaction was to end the marriage. I wanted out. But my wife was extremely remorseful. She begged for forgiveness, went to therapy, quit her job, and took every reconciliation step I asked of her. She seemed genuinely committed to fixing things, and eventually, after a lot of soul-searching, I decided to stay with her. I did it partly for her, partly for our family, and partly because I believed we could rebuild what had been broken. And for the most part, it worked. For the next 5 years, things were actually really good between us. We went on date nights, took romantic vacations, and made an effort to reconnect emotionally and physically. There were times when I felt like we had actually fallen in love with each other all over again. I was proud of the progress we had made, and I felt like I had made the right decision by staying in the marriage. But then, as we entered the 6th year after the affair, something shifted in me. I can't pinpoint exactly what triggered it, but all those feelings of betrayal that I thought I had buried started bubbling back up to the surface. Maybe it was the fact that our daughter was about to graduate, and the idea of moving into the next chapter of our lives made me reflect more deeply on where we were as a couple. Or maybe it was the realization that, despite all the good times we had since, I still couldn't fully let go of what had happened. The truth is, the affair never left my mind, even during the best moments. I thought I could move on, but deep down, the trust was gone, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living a lie by staying with her. Then my sister said something that hit me like a ton of bricks. We were talking casually about life when she said, "Would you really want to spend the rest of your life with someone who betrayed you so badly? Life is short, and you deserve to be happy." It was a simple question, but it made me realize that I'd been holding myself back. My sister didn't know the full extent of my inner turmoil, but her words struck a chord. I thought about them constantly in the days leading up to my daughter's graduation. I finally made up my mind. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't pretend that the affair didn't matter or that everything was fine when, in reality, it wasn't. I knew I had to end the marriage for my own sake, no matter how long it had taken me to come to this conclusion. A couple of days before my daughter's graduation, I made the decision. I didn't want to delay it any longer because the weight of it was eating me up inside. So, the day before her graduation, I sat my wife down and told her I was going to file for divorce. She was completely shocked. I think she believed that because we had made it this far and had so many good years together, the affair was behind us. But for me, it wasn't. I explained to her that, despite the good times we'd had, I could no longer ignore the betrayal. I told her that I had thought long and hard about it, and my decision was final. She cried. A lot. She begged me to reconsider, saying she would do anything to save the marriage. But for me, it was too late. I had already made up my mind. There wasn't anything left to fix because the trust had been irreparably broken. I felt strangely calm as I told her. I didn't want to hurt her, but I knew staying together wasn't going to work anymore. The next day was our daughter's graduation. Despite everything that had happened the night before, I was determined to keep it together for her sake. I didn't want to ruin what should have been a joyful day. The ceremony was beautiful, and I was incredibly proud of my daughter. She had worked so hard to get to that moment, and I wanted her to enjoy every second of it. But as the day went on, my daughter started to pick up on the tension between her mother and me. My wife tried to put on a happy face, but I could tell she was struggling to keep her emotions in check. At one point, my daughter asked me why her mom seemed upset, and I just told her not to worry about it and to enjoy the day. I didn't want to dump that kind of emotional bomb on her during her graduation celebration. The day after the graduation, I sat my daughter down and told her the truth. I was filing for divorce. She was completely shocked. She asked me why I would do this right before her graduation, and she was upset that her mom hadn't been able to fully enjoy the day because of what I had told her. I tried to explain that this decision had been a long time coming and that it wasn't about her or the timing of her graduation. I told her that no matter what, both her mom and I would always love her, but we couldn't stay together anymore. My daughter was clearly hurt and angry. She accused me of ruining her graduation day by dropping this bombshell right before such an important event. I told her that it wasn't her business, that this was between her mother and me, and that our relationship wouldn't affect how much we loved her. But I could tell she didn't fully understand. I don't blame her for being upset. No one wants their parents to split up, especially not during such a pivotal time in their life. Now, as my wife and I go through the divorce process, I keep wondering, did I handle this the wrong way? Should I have waited until after the graduation to tell my wife? Was it selfish of me to do it when I did, or was it better to be honest about my decision as soon as I knew what I wanted? My wife is devastated, and my daughter is hurt, and I feel like the villain in this situation, even though I know deep down that leaving is the right choice for me. So, AITAH for telling my wife I wanted a divorce the day before our daughter's graduation? Or was I just being true to myself and my own happiness? Story 2. My M26 wife, F24, went to run some errands yesterday. I called to see how things were going, and she told me she signed a lease for an apartment. I'm crushed, and I don't know what to do. As a longtime lurker of this subreddit, I always hoped I'd never have to post here, but life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. So, here I am, sharing my story, hoping for some advice or at least a little clarity on what the hell just happened. Alright, buckle up, this might be a long one, but I appreciate anyone willing to read through it. TLDR at the bottom for those who just want the quick version. Backstory. My wife and I have been together for 6 years. We met when she was just starting college and I was a sophomore, and, honestly, I didn't see her coming. We met through my girlfriend at the time. Yeah, I know, not the best start. That relationship wasn't great, to be honest, and was on life support at that point. It felt like it was being kept alive out of sheer stubbornness. And then I met her, the woman who would change everything for me. She was stunning. Not just in the way she looked, though, she was gorgeous, but in the way she carried herself, the way she spoke. She had this aura about her that captivated me. Every time we talked, my heart would race, and before long, sparks were flying. It wasn't an easy transition from my last relationship to starting one with her. It was rocky, to say the least, but we pushed through. Late nights, deep conversations, spontaneous dates that made us feel like we were the only two people in the world. After about a year, we moved in together, and those days felt like magic. It was the kind of relationship where the world could be falling apart, but we were just happy to be together, no matter what. Fast forward 6 years, more than 5 of them living together, and 2 of them married. I couldn't imagine spending that time with anyone else. Sure, we had our growing pains. We went from playing house and pretending to be adults to actually doing the real thing. But through it all, the ups, the downs, the learning curves, we became better versions of ourselves. Or so I thought. I always tried to give her the love and attention I wanted to receive in return. I'm the kind of guy who'll pack lunches with little love notes, set up scavenger hunts just for fun, and leave love letters hidden around the house for her to find after a hard day. I never let myself get complacent, always trying to show her that she was my world. I was in tune with her, maybe too much at times. If she had the slightest change in mood, I'd immediately go into fix-it mode, trying to figure out what was wrong and how I could make it better. I wanted to build the kind of life we dreamed about together. But now, looking back, I wonder if that was the problem. Was I trying too hard to fix things that were already broken? Was I blind to what was happening right in front of me? The beginning of the end. 5 months ago, we took a trip to St. Lucia. It was paradise, literally the most beautiful place I've ever been, and being there with her made it even better. It felt like we were in a fairy tale. I've never felt more in love with her than I did during that trip. But there was something off. She was texting a coworker, F25-ish, way more than usual. We always had this unspoken rule, our time together was our time. But here we were in paradise, and she was glued to her phone, texting this coworker nonstop. When we got back home, she went to hang out with this same coworker, saying she'd only be gone for a couple of hours. Well, those couple of hours turned into a much longer night, and when she finally got home, I knew something was up. I could feel it in my gut. I confronted her about it. She swore nothing was going on, said they were just friends, and tried to play it off like I was overreacting. But I couldn't let it go. My fix-it instincts kicked in, and I told her I wanted to see their texts. Now, this is something I never do. We always gave each other space and privacy, but this time, I just had to know. Her face went ghost white, and then she said, "You're going to find something." Well, she wasn't lying. I found more than I ever wanted to. She was having an emotional affair with this coworker, or so she claimed, emotional. The texts were filled with flirty banter, suggestive comments, and, to top it all off, spicy pictures. My heart broke right there. I didn't know what to say or do. I was devastated. She stayed with a friend for a few nights after that while I tried to figure out how to process everything. The repair, aka the calm before the storm. Those nights were some of the hardest of my life. I cried. I drank too much. I sent some hurtful texts to her, which I'm not proud of, but I was in so much pain. But eventually, she came back, and we tried to talk it through. We spent hours discussing how we got to this point, what had gone wrong, and what we could do to fix things. She started therapy, and for a while, it seemed like things were getting better. Our communication improved, and it felt like we were on the right track to rebuilding what we had lost. I offered to go to couples counseling, willing to do whatever it took to make things work. I still loved her, even after everything. I did my best not to hold the affair against her, giving her the space and privacy she needed to heal. I thought we were getting back to a good place, maybe even a better place than we had been before. For a moment, I believed we could come out of this stronger. But clearly, I was wrong. The phone call that broke everything. Yesterday, my wife went out to run some errands. Nothing out of the ordinary. A couple of hours later, I called her to check in, see how she was doing, and ask if she needed help with anything. That's when she dropped the bomb. She told me she had just signed a lease for an apartment. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. My entire world came crashing down with one sentence. The callous way she said it, like it was just another errand she had crossed off her list, is seared into my brain. No warning. No conversation. She had made the decision without me, without even trying to talk about it first. I'm sitting here now, alone in our house, with our cats and all our belongings, while my wife is out there moving on without me. I'm about to go on a work trip, but I don't know how I'm going to function. The weight of everything that's happened is pressing down on me, suffocating me. I'm crushed. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to plead with her, beg her to come back, to fight for what we had. But another part of me knows there's nothing I can do to stop this. She's made her decision, and no amount of begging or pleading will change that. Where do I go from here? How do I pick up the pieces of my life when I thought everything was fine, only to find out it wasn't? I thought we had something special, something worth fighting for. But maybe I was just fooling myself all along. I don't know. I'm lost. Any advice, or even just a kind word, would mean the world to me right now. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. TLDR, my wife and I had a great relationship, or so I thought. We hit some bumps, including her having an emotional affair. We tried to fix things, and I thought we were doing better. Yesterday, she told me she signed a lease for an apartment and is leaving. Now I'm sitting here, heartbroken and unsure of what to do next. Story 3. AITAH for refusing to sign over my family's land to my brother because he needs it more? I find myself in a difficult situation with my younger brother that has now blown up into a full family conflict. What started as a seemingly simple disagreement has turned into a full-blown drama, with different family members taking sides. It's one of those situations that has me questioning whether I'm in the wrong, even though I feel pretty strongly that I'm justified. I'd love some outside perspective on this, so here's the whole story. The backstory. To give you some context, my family owns a piece of land that's been passed down for generations, over 100 years, in fact. It's about 10 acres of beautiful, undeveloped land just outside the city. Growing up, my brother and I always heard stories about how this land had been in our family for ages, and it was kind of a source of pride for all of us. No one lives on the land, it's mostly just been there, untouched, like an heirloom of sorts. But it's always been understood that this land was special and that it was supposed to stay in the family forever. The plan from my parents has always been that the land would be passed down equally to both me and my younger brother once they pass away. So it's been made very clear for years, the land would eventually belong to both of us, shared 50/50ths. For context, let me describe the land for you, because I think that helps illustrate just why this whole situation feels so significant. Picture a wide stretch of rolling fields with clusters of trees scattered across the landscape. There's a small stream that cuts through part of the property, and in the spring, wildflowers bloom everywhere. It's incredibly peaceful and quiet, and even though we've never developed it or lived on it, the land has always had a special place in my heart. It feels like a piece of history, and in a way, it's always felt like a part of me. The proposal? My younger brother, let's call him Tom, is married and has 2 kids, with a third on the way. He's about 2 years younger than me, and for the most part, we've always gotten along pretty well. We're not super close, our personalities are pretty different, but we've never had any major issues between us, until now. A couple of months ago, Tom came to me with a proposal. He and his wife are planning for the future, and they've decided that they want to build a house on the family land. That idea didn't bother me in the slightest, I was actually kind of happy for them. I mean, building a home on that land would be beautiful, and it seemed like a nice way to carry on our family's legacy. But then Tom dropped a bombshell. He wasn't asking to build on the land, he was asking me to give him my half of the land, completely, for free. His reasoning? Well, because he has a growing family, and I don't have kids, I'm child-free by choice, he feels that he needs it more than I do. Tom went on to explain that since I don't plan on having a family of my own to pass the land down to, my half would basically go to waste. He argued that since he has kids and is planning for their future, it made more sense for him to have the entire piece of land. He made it sound like I was just holding on to something that I wouldn't even use, while for him, it could change everything by giving his family a place to call home. When he first said this, I didn't even know how to respond. I mean, we're talking about something that's been in our family for over a century, something our parents intend for us to share equally. And now, out of nowhere, he's asking me to sign over my half, just because he has kids? It felt like a really unfair and selfish request. It's not like I don't value the land just because I don't have children to pass it on to. In fact, the idea that the land has been preserved for generations is part of what makes it so important to me. So, I told Tom that I wasn't comfortable with the idea of just handing over my share. I tried to be calm and explain that while I wasn't planning to build anything on it right now, the land still meant a lot to me, and I wanted to keep it in the family as it was always intended. I even suggested that maybe we could find a way for him to build on part of his half, but he wasn't having it. He insisted that he needed the whole thing and started accusing me of being selfish for not considering his family's future. The fallout? This is where things really started to go downhill. Tom didn't take my refusal well at all. He said I was being selfish, that I wasn't thinking about his kids, and that since I'm financially better off than he is, I didn't need the land the way he does. For a little more context, I've been pretty successful in my career, and I'm comfortable financially, while Tom and his wife are definitely more in the middle-class bracket. He tried to use that as leverage, saying that since I don't need the money or the land, and I don't have kids, it would change everything for him and his family if I just gave it to him. I stood my ground and told him I wasn't comfortable with signing over my half of the land. And I'll be honest, I wasn't prepared for how angry he got. He accused me of not caring about his kids, of being out of touch with what it's like to struggle financially, and he even tried to guilt-trip me by saying I was letting the land go to waste because I didn't have a family to pass it down to. I was pretty stunned by how hostile he got, especially considering that I thought I had a valid reason for wanting to keep my half. After that conversation, things between us got really tense, and it wasn't long before Tom started involving other family members. First, he went to my parents, who, to their credit, have tried to stay neutral in all of this. They understand my side but also sympathize with Tom's situation. My mom has tried to act as a mediator, but she doesn't want to push either of us too hard in one direction. I think my parents are hoping we'll work it out on our own, but that's not how it's playing out. Tom then rallied a bunch of our extended family, cousins, aunts, and uncles, and now they're weighing in, too. Some of them think I'm being completely unreasonable for not giving the land to Tom. They've told me things like, he has a family, you don't, or what's the point of keeping the land if you're not going to use it? They've made me feel like I'm being selfish, holding on to something I don't need while denying Tom and his kids a chance to have a home of their own. But here's the thing, I don't feel like I'm being selfish. I feel like I have the right to my half of the land, just like Tom has the right to his. I don't think it's fair to frame this as me hoarding the land just because I'm child-free. The land means something to me, even if I don't plan on building on it right now. And maybe someday, I'll want to use it for something, whether that's a personal project, a retreat, or maybe even something for my nieces and nephews down the line. Who knows? But the point is, it's my land too, and I shouldn't have to give it up just because I don't have children. Questioning myself. But with so many family members piling on, I'm starting to question myself. Am I being stubborn or short-sighted? Should I just give in and give the land to Tom for the sake of peace? It's causing such a huge rift in the family, and part of me wonders if I'm overvaluing the land out of some misplaced sense of pride. I'm not planning on having kids, and maybe my half will just sit there, unused, while Tom and his family could build a home and create memories on it. But then, when I think about just handing it over, I feel resentful. Why should I be pressured into giving up something that's just as much mine as it is his? Just because he has a family and I don't doesn't mean that my claim to the land is any less valid. And the fact that he tried to use his financial situation and the fact that he has kids as leverage just doesn't sit right with me. This whole situation has left me feeling frustrated, hurt, and unsure of what to do. I've tried to be fair, but now I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in a story where I didn't ask for any of this drama. I know the land means a lot to me, but I also don't want to be the reason my family is torn apart over it. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to sign over my half of the family land to my brother, even though he says he needs it more? TLDR, my brother wants me to sign over my half of our family's land to him because he has kids and I don't. I refused, and now the whole family is involved, with some members accusing me of being selfish for not giving it to him. Am I the asshole?